My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
And it's 1985. And we've come back to show people how to hoverboard. Oh, wait, there's no fucking hoverboards.
We're not in Hill Valley.
Flying cars. Oh, wait, we don't have that. Making fuel out of recycled material. Okay, we don't have that either.
We had that going. With a narcissist who becomes the most powerful man in the United States. Too real. Anyway, so it's old.
Donald Trump really is Biff Tannen, isn't
Yeah, 100%. That Back to the Future 2 timeline is really scary when you just take out the words Biff Tannen and put in the words Donald Trump, which is what they wrote it based on.
Yes, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
The projection was amazing. Anyway, obviously it's the Washing Up Podcast. It's old school week, and what's more old school than having Kristie back?
Yes, I'm back. I've spent a nice sojourn on an island communing with the Queen. Just a little island that might be between Earth and Hades. It's
somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere around.
How was she?
Great. Doing well. She's picked up a new love of crochet.
Of course she has.
And also decoupage.
Oh, nothing like afterlife decoupage for the Queen.
Yeah. She has access to, old magazines from the 1920s that were banned. Not because they had anything in it that was racist or controversial. Ankle. No. The paper was made out of things that were poisonous to humans. Yeah.
Lead paper.
Yeah,
But in the afterlife, fantastic for decoupage.
You know those uranium newspapers that were floating around?
So common. Yeah. We've all seen Fallout. Uranium newspapers.
Yeah, cutting off a bit of that radium wallpaper.
That is exactly where Kristie was. She was on an island. That is exactly where she's
Wasn't winning a competition at all.
Was not winning a competition at all.
I was winning a competition.
Congratulations.
But anyway,
so old school week.
Yes.
Ironically enough, the opening joke was about time travel.
It was, which is great, because I just watched, what was it? Some other show on Netflix about time travel. It was just doing my head in that it was all time travel this, time travel that, and now I'm thinking I'm going to go to bed and sleep and dream about radioactive decoupage.
And can we acknowledge for a minute Anne's outfit, which had her stumbling out of bed and going to the kitchen to pour herself a cup of ambition.
It was so Dolly. I loved it. I love the modern Dolly twist, and I think she would have suited in any era they went back to. And I'm glad they just went back to her being oppressed and not all the other terrible things that...
The 1950s, that would have been me back in the kitchen.
It's
I'm looking at Alan going...
other things. Yeah.
So many other things. They went very light, which was good. So we also got the Baked for Life tattoo, and I want someone to get that. Bruno, are you listening? I want someone to get that.
I wonder if the podcast Baked Canadian Takeoff, if that was their influence.
I've got to ask them. I'll find out. Guys, give us a signal. A smoke signal, probably. Anyway, so...
Just a combi van.
A combi van of smoke. So the signature was back to the 1960s.
Oh, nice.
For a toaster pastry.
Yes.
Now, 2 hours for toaster pastry. Now, Kristie...
Yes.
The heritage of toaster pastries in Australia is very...
1990s.
Yeah, 1990s and very sparse, and only Pop-Tarts.
Yes, only Pop-Tarts. And you basically... We didn't have them.
They didn't go mainstream. We had them a lot at our place, but that's because I liked eating things that were not vaguely healthy for breakfast.
Yeah, I think we had them a couple of times, but my younger sister was an elite gymnast, so everything in our house was fucking bran and...
Lots of bran.
Lots of fucking bran, lots of fucking porridge, and Wheat Bix, which coincidentally probably has as much sugar as a Pop-Tart in them, particularly when you add sugar to it.
Definitely. But yeah, we didn't really have the sort of the toaster pastry here. It wasn't really a thing. Pop-Tarts, they emerged really, they were marketed here early 1990s, and then they just went onto the shelves and they weren't marketed, they just exist.
Yeah.
And they're there, and you can still buy them, but nobody really does.
Yeah, and if they do, it's not a thing. It's not common.
No, it's not something that we go out of our way to sort of...
But we're not disparaging it. This is obviously the equivalent of when you came home from schools and poured yourself a bowl of Cocoa Pops. if you were in the States or
Canada,
you go home and pop yourself a tart.
I know people that did that too. Anyway, now I liked this next bit from Heather purely because, look, we've had some issues in the past when it comes to Australian and nostalgia weeks and Canadian and nostalgia weeks, and I like the fact they called it old school, not nostalgia. Which was clever. Nostalgia indicates shared experience. Old school is directly referencing something that happened in the past.
And most of the time, right, our experiences, like from the 80s and whatever, we had our own experiences, but a lot of the stuff that, it depended on your socioeconomic status, the part of the world you're in. So Pop-Tarts weren't a thing for us in the 80s, but you know what was? A lot of fucking Australiana. You know, I bet you guys didn't have your Jenny Key and your bloody koala.
Oh, they had a lot of koala
shit.
stuff. Mostly because
cockatoos.
remember Olivia Newton-John briefly had that clothing line that she had over. Yeah, that happened. And Yahoo Serious was a thing.
Oh, over there too?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Over there too. Over there.
Hold on. We'd like to make a formal apology.
Yeah, on behalf of Australia, we would like to apologise for Yahoo Serious. And Young Einstein. And Reckless Kelly, which you really wouldn't have understood if you did see it. Like, it's really hard for us to understand it, and we get the historical context.
You're like, why is he walking around with a garbage bin on
You
his
know whose
head?
fault it was?
Whose?
Australia 2's.
Why?
Australia 2 won the America's Cup. Land Down Under went to the top of the charts, and it was a period of about 7 years where there was Australiana everywhere, and then it all fucked off.
Oh, thank God for that.
Yeah, I'm glad that lot of Australiana disappeared.
Yeah, there's some good stuff these days coming through.
Well, I mean, look,
art-wise.
we'll get to the budgies later. Anyway,
Saw them smuggle those in.
but what I really appreciated about Heather was that she basically said everyone gets to decide for themselves what they consider old school.
Yeah, so we know the 19-year-olds around us would be going, you know, it's totally old school hypercolour t-shirts.
Well, they don't even know what a hypercolour is.
What?
They've never heard of it.
Canada, surely they had hypercolour t-shirts.
Not even about the 19-year-olds.
Oh, the 19-year-olds. Okay.
They don't know what a hypercolour is. They've got no clue what hypercolour is.
Well, maybe they'll discover it and they'll be like, oh my God,
Hypercolour
it's
t-shirt.
hypercolour.
Hypercolour t-shirts. I don't know if they were big in Canada. They were massive in Australia until people realised you can't put them in the dryer because it ruins the hypercolour effect forever. They
or
just changed
the clothesline
colour.
on a hot day because that too would fuck
They
them
just
up.
changed colour in heat.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really good by Heather to sort of establish that idea of what is old school is going to be different for everybody.
Yep.
You know, like for example later on, you know, with the cassettes. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail. But Loic did use the word whimsical early on.
Yes, that's good.
So the spirit of Jude is hovering around.
Yeah,
And I say spirit, she's not dead. She's like definitely not dead. Hey Jude, hang on.
Yeah. She's kind of like a part human, part miasma.
Yes. Was she in that little in-between space near where the Queen was decoupaging?
Oh yeah, she was totally floating around. You know,
helping the Queen decoupage.
Exactly.
She really would
her,
too. I mean,
inspiring her to decoupage.
Now, Kyla pointed out that while these are fun and kitsch, obviously, and kitsch was a big word through this whole episode. They should have just called it Kitsch Week and be done with it.
But the way Heather spoke about it was as if the term kitsch wasn't well known in Canada, but I'm sure, like where there are gays, there is kitsch.
But all of the episodes,
if there's gays, you will know.
All of the parts of this episode, they mentioned kitsch non-stop through it. I mean, it's very much, you know, the episode of The Simpsons with John Waters.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the zap. But it was also tricky that it nailed the consistency of the actual pastry. You could go overboard with the theme, but stuff up the actual base of you need a solid, sturdy, robust pastry that's going to work.
And also to contain whatever filling you're putting in.
And you've got to be able to make sure that everything gets cooked properly. Yeah. Now, this is where we found out that Kathy makes rough puff when she goes camping.
As she corrected, glamping. And
yes.
As someone who won't even deign to glamp,
I will not glamp.
If it's 4 stars, that's one too little. That's
four stars is definitely camping for me.
Chris roughing it, yeah.
Me roughing it is very much that.
Look,
so
once whatever apocalypse hits, like Chris is out of here. He's just like, you know what?
I mean, I'm going to go to Heather for a bit of help.
Yeah.
But after that,
he'll just run the.
But if I ever have to go camping, Kathy's the sort of person I want to go camping with because I'd like a croissant.
Yeah. A bit of rough puff, you know, what's she creating? Just a little brekkie tart, you know. And I'm assuming, you know, there's instead of doing like toasted marshmallows, you're toasting caviar or something. Although that said, you know what's really good over a fire?
Oh, this would be good.
Toasting brie, right, till it's melty, and then whacking it on some like bread. Oh my god.
That is the most
Tis the best.
amazingly middle class statement.
Okay. I'm not saying my friends and I...
Toasting brie.
Okay. I'm not saying my friends and I are bougie, but last year we paid for an extra night after this gathering thing that we went to, because everyone was leaving on the Sunday, and we're like, fuck it, we'll stay the extra night and we'll go back the next day. And we couldn't be fucked going into town to find a pub or something to have dinner at. So we scrounged around whatever food we had to create dinner. Now, I'm not saying that pate and like, you know, artisan bread was pulled out or, you know, toasted brie was a thing, but it was.
I can't look.
Washing it down with some, like, you know, boutique mead and whatever else we fucking had.
I mean, I'm not necessarily mocking you for that, because what have I been
and
making?
I'm sure that's what's on Kathy's menu.
But what have I been making for the last couple of weeks? A lot.
I can't remember.
Versions of croque monsieur.
Oh, that's right.
So, you know, like, we've gone bougie.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kathy was doing...
Fuck your normal jaffles.
So they don't even know the concept of a jaffle.
Really?
The word jaffle, I don't think's travelled.
Okay, well, we'll have to share what that is, because it
So-
will blow your mind, and you will be making them. They're the best.
So Kathy was going with a bologna for breakfast thing, which was pear, date, and Cambozola cheese. Cool, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Candied bologna and maple drizzle.
Look, I think that's very similar to having your maple bacon. You know, it's bologna, which is what? Just random parts of mostly pig and whatever else.
Miscellaneous animal.
Miscellaneous animal and miscellaneous parts.
Yep.
And whacked together, so...
Bologna, the most miscellaneous of the meats.
Yeah, which I'm assuming is a lot like Devon. Like
Yeah, it's the equivalency
or
of
if you're from South Australia, Fritz.
Devon, Fritz, Berliner, whatever version you want to use in Australia.
Yeah.
But, you know, those dates are wrong. Yeah, it's basically a sort of... It's not quite Devon, but it's really close.
Like, Devon, to me, is very similar, say, if you've got the insides of a hot dog, but, like, mash
Flattened
them
it out.
down more, yeah.
And made it look... So here's the difference. Devon is far more pink
Yes.
than bologna.
And
But
has
that's, I
one-
think, the only difference.
Yeah, and it also has more of a, like it looks like a tinier, like a tighter consistency.
Yeah, there's more gelatinous texture to a bologna.
Yes.
It's like bologna feels like... Bologna is to
No, we're
Devon... Bologna is to Devon
Yeah.
what Spam is to ham.
No.
No, because they're jellied.
Oh, okay.
They're slight
I
jelly.
would say ham is like an actual meat, though.
No, I'm saying ham is an actual meat. Yes, I'm not
Yeah.
comparing. No one's saying that Spam is good. Actually, I say this now, and there is somebody
But Devon
right now
and
who is on a
bologna
rampage.
are the same kind of, like, they're on the same, like, you...
Devon and
you
bologna
put
are on
them
the
in
spectrum.
Their
Yes.
family. They're in the same family, you know?
They're distant brothers.
They're the Irish...
Same father, but the mother was different.
That when you do your ancestry DNA and you find out, you know, like your Irish family split, some went to bloody America and some came here.
But you also find out that you're all related to Genghis Khan. Anyway,
Yes. And 1% Basque, which is what I'm seeing now, because I know that we've got Basque Heritage, so I joined the Basque Heritage Facebook page.
you joined the Basque Heritage.
It's wonderful to learn about stuff, but the majority of posts are, I've just done Ancestry DNA, and we have 1% Basque heritage, so I'm here to learn about my family's culture.
Look, nobody expected the Spanish Inquisition. Anyway.
I honestly think all these DNA places are just fucking tourist traps, you know? Like, these are people that are like, oh,
You know,
we're
for
not
a couple-
really getting people to this part
You
of
know,
Spain.
for a couple
They're
of
too busy
$1 million
going to Madrid,
yeah, for a couple
and
of $1 million
Barcelona.
for a couple of $1 million, we
Ibiza.
will convince people that they are from your
Bar-
part of the world.
Yes.
You know, you open it up. Surfer's paradise. That's very, very accurate.
Did you know we have family in Wagga?
Why not visit Dapto? So Andrew went with a chocolate orange inspired bake. Now, not the Terry chocolate orange. It was the sort of the candies you could crush.
Never heard of them, and I'm gonna.
I've seen them
This is
before.
great. I'm learning a lot.
Because when they went, the ones you could smash.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't try to crush a chocolate orange with your hand, you'd break it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look up. You keep talking. I'm gonna look up this smashing.
Oh, good. So
I'm assuming it's the Canadian band that Billy Corgan started, the Smashing Oranges.
So chocolate orange filling, Irish cream glaze, which was Bailey's. And this is where Bruno turned around to Andrew and went, "It looks like you've got no concerns today." At which point Andrew just went, "Oh, Bruno. Oh no, Kristie."
Despite all my slight miffness, I am still just a caribou in a cage.
Oh no.
I'm assuming that's what it would be. Anyway, keep going.
So Camilla got to be sort of the rest of us that weren't the sort of North American traditional sort of thing by going, "I don't really have these." Because like Lower Caster was like, "Did you have these growing up?" And she's like, "No." Mm-hmm. We didn't have any equivalency of that in Colombia. There's no such thing as one of these sort of toaster pastries.
Yeah.
It was only when she got to Canada, and that was when I think it was then Candace was talking about the idea of her mum was like, Canadians eat lots of things in boxes. Well, they do craft dinner. I mean, the Bare Naked Ladies made a whole song dedicated to it. Anyway, but she went with mango lime filling with the chamoy sauce glaze, so the spicy Mexican sauce on top with the mango lime, which is really a bougie version of that. Now, Heather. Now, Heather, we cut to Heather in time.
Kathy was taking notes and going, next camping trip.
Next camping trip.
Yes.
So we cut over to Heather, who was beating up her pastry and talking about word etymology. As is her wont. And it's what she does. This is her wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. Now, the Weihnachtsmarkt, which is the night market.
Oh, yeah.
I worked hard on that. Weihnachtsmarkt.
You know how my reference for that is when Angela from bloody
The Office.
No. The Escape to the Chateau family went there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It was lovely. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
So walnut prune filling, Madeira wine icing, and then going with like a spiced mulled wine feel of the Labushkin spiced pastry.
Yum.
So like,
I don't know what any of this is, but I want the mulled wine I know about. Yeah. So
and Madeira icing as well.
I know Madeira.
Yeah, you know Madeira.
I know Madeira. Okay. I do have references.
I know Madeira personally. Yeah.
I just feel like I'm in I don't really know what that is. I'm just an Australian that has no worldly knowledge.
Well, unfortunately, we all know what pumpkin spice lattes are. Now,
I've never tasted them.
Now, pumpkin spice lattes are apparently the song of the white people, and
cool.
It's really intriguing because, like, for Australians,
yeah,
like Candace did a pumpkin spice latte, basically. Mm-hmm. For Australians, it's really interesting because one of the things, if you've spent any time on social media, especially like things like TikTok, you will see one of the biggest trends is Americans coming and Canadians coming out to Australia and finding out that Australian coffee is really good.
Yeah.
And that Australians can't, as a rule, stand Starbucks.
No, Starbucks sucks.
Starbucks, the only business they do is when people decide it's pumpkin spice time and go and get that. The irony being that pumpkin spice lattes are the wrong time of year for us.
Oh, absolutely. It's like Halloween. Completely wrong time. Like, imagine, right, it's Easter time for you guys and someone goes, let's go out trick-or-treating and dress up like pumpkins and celebrate the harvest. When really all the flowers are blooming, you're getting ready for summer to come.
It's, like, again...
Like, imagine your Christmas, there you are trying to roast something, chestnuts by the open fire. And until the fire brigade comes and knocks on your door and goes, there's a total fucking fire ban.
We can't do chestnuts roasting on an open fire at Christmas time. There's a total fire ban.
Unless we go to the bushfire itself and roast them there.
Every year without fail, there is a total fire ban at Christmas. So, we couldn't do that.
No.
But, like, it's really funny for an Australian part of the audience. Yeah. And I know we're definitely the minority of the audience, but it's us and about 15 people we know. Yeah. But the important point with all of that is that, for Australians, that's the wrong time of year for pumpkin spice lattes.
But I can imagine how wonderful it would be and delicious it would be when you've got those beautiful autumn nights coming in, having, like, I haven't tasted it. I've heard it's a lot like the spices that you put into a Christmas pudding.
Yeah.
So that would be really lovely during cooler months.
So Alan did also suggest the deliberate misspelling of names on the cups. Now, again, that's as you found out.
What's the weirdest name you've had put on a cup?
Oh, wow. I've had a couple of really good ones.
Yeah.
Most of them are never close. Not even ballpark close.
Mine was Misty. And
That's
that
right. You were
became-
Misty. Yes.
That was my road trip name with a friend of mine whose name is Shannon, but they kept calling her Helen. So Misty and Helen had lots
The
of
ride of
adventures.
Misty, the ride of Misty and Helen was epic. But as if you've been on social media, you know that that's a thing that's deliberate. Because it goes viral online.
Oh, okay.
So people post the photo of the fact they've gone to Starbucks with like the name misspelled.
Oh, bullshit. You've gotten up and told them the wrong name. Like, baristas, you know, I can understand if, like, English is their second language. But so what?
Most of the time it's like a simple name completely made up and misspelled.
Oh, okay.
So what it is it's a thing that basically originally it's not a consistent policy, but there was a thing that was happening where it was being done deliberately in order to make it more viral, so that they got free advertising on socials.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that was the
Well,
reason.
I'm very
why.
negative tonight.
Yeah, you are.
I do apologise, everyone. It's been a very long weekend.
It's been a very long weekend. There's a reason there's no drinking game. I was too tired.
I am currently now the do-it-yourself burlesque koala, grand koala, great koala.
You're the great DIY burlesque
Burlesque
koala. Yes.
I am just still getting used to my.
So the
title.
competition, I'm gonna just.
Okay.
So the competition, we have to take a break here to talk about the competition. We do
All right,
actually have to
okay.
do that. So the competition was $100.
Yeah, $100 to completely create a burlesque act and costume, including props. All the work, like constructing the props and the costume, had to be done yourself. You could borrow one item and have one owned item. You could use scrap material, and that was things that you could not make anything out of, like anything else out of at all.
And things that were found in nature.
And things that were found in nature. So a while ago, I had this crazy idea about creating a routine to a Kylie Minogue song called Slow, except it was her Abbey Road album version, which is even slower and kind of more jazzy. You'd even say bluesy, wouldn't you?
It is.
One. But dressed as a sloth. And the whole point is I go so slow that I get to the bra reveal and the song ends.
And you haven't even got to take it vaguely off.
No. And I had... And so when this opportunity came up, I thought, fuck it, I'll put my hat in the ring. I'll have a crack at it. I can't sew for shit. We'll give it a go. I op-shopped a lot and hyper-focused and pulled this act together. And despite wanting to like faint and throw up backstage, I got on stage and did it. But for the first half of the act, it was very quiet. But then I remembered what was coming. And as I was creating an act about sloths, I found out lots of sloth facts, including the fact that they only poo once a week and that they choose to climb down to the ground, putting themselves at great risk to poo down there because it also spreads endorphins to attract a mate. So I realized that my whole routine was about a sloth going to poo. And so one of the funny reveals that was coming up was a poo emoji that was highly diamantied.
Very, very diamond.
So very sparkly. You can't polish a turd, but by G, you can diamante the shit out of it.
You can.
So yeah, so I was relieved that happened, and there were so many amazing acts and performers and stuff, and like I was up against people that are doing this shit for years,
Producers.
and fucking just amazing dancers and stuff. But apparently, pooping on stage is what wins you things in Australia.
Again, so she won, and yay!
Yay.
And that's why we've been
Busy
really
and-
busy and quiet, and yeah.
And I've had to have stand-ins last week.
Thank you, Aaron and Nerman, who were amazing stunt Christies, by the way.
Yeah,
Absolutely
thank you.
amazing stunt Christies.
My only complaint is that there were not enough reaping jokes about the harvest. Like, where were our blood sacrifices? Where was our lots of references?
We
to
might do
Midsummer?
a special.
Where was our Wicker Man?
We might
It
do
was
a
a
special.
harvest
We
special.
might do a special.
What about organs?
We might do a special once you watch that episode.
Okay.
Because you still haven't got there. So when we were watching the recap before we started this, it was watching the recap. Kristie went, "Oh no!
I know, I didn't know Niv had gone.
I didn't know Niv had gone."
Yes.
So anyway, we got
Yes, back at the ranch.
a new animal,
We did.
a snake.
Snake. That hasn't happened before. I've never
No.
seen a snake before.
We got a snake. We're used to the birds,
The cuddly worms, as I like to
the
call
cuddly
them.
worms.
You know?
Well, in Canada, it's probably a fairly cuddly worm.
Yeah, it is.
So then we got to the baking, and we cut back to like who had 3D printed a cassette cutter to do his tops of his ones. So
That's brilliant.
orange cream filling and licorice fondant. Now, there's two things I want to talk about here. The first thing is, you missed a trick. Because while Kyla pointed out that most people, a large percentage of people didn't know what Alan was talking about when he talked about using a pencil to wind back a cassette. In a lot of circles, records are also known as licorice pizza. So the licorice top would have been perfect as a record.
Yeah,
But
cassettes are funkier.
yes, and this is where we get to the second thing I want to talk about, which is the mixtape.
Yes.
So, or as some people call it now, a Spotify playlist. But the mixtape's better. The mixtape, I don't know,
Why?
do you agree? I like the mixtape because you've got to curate a mixtape.
Do that with Spotify playlist.
No, but you can just keep adding shit to a Spotify playlist.
Exactly.
Whereas with a mixtape, you've got to be very deliberate about what you pick.
You can still do that with a Spotify playlist. You just don't add more to it. You just call it this, like that.
Yeah, but you don't
add
have
songs,
the
that's
but
it.
you don't have the option of changing it with a mixtape once it's done.
Which is stupid. Because what if you break up with that person
Commit!
and you just want to send that, like, you like, I really like the songs in this playlist. You know, maybe I just want to add a couple of extras and take a couple of out.
Where's the awkwardness of getting a mixtape and accidentally recording over parts of it so that, like, you're listening to a song and then suddenly it cuts out briefly, you can hear someone rustling around in the background with a microphone, and then the song cuts back in because they accidentally hit the record button.
Look, as a teenager, I think I would have had more success of getting a boyfriend if I had the ability to send memes and send Spotify playlists.
Oh, I made mixtapes purely for me.
Oh, no,
I made mixtapes were from me to me. I taped everything off the radio.
Yeah, I did that too, but I had ADHD, so I was perpetually wanting to add shit to it, and I couldn't. Why? Because they were fixed. So otherwise you just had to wipe something out. And, you know, Ace of Base, you know, while shit, you know, it's very hard to find something that covers all that she wants
But
perfectly. You know, Spotify playlist, you just remove from playlists that Ace of Base that you randomly liked, and then whack in a bit of Shaggy or whatever.
I like the idea that you're going Ace of Base. Ew, that's fair, by the way. But
I'm trying to think
what
of,
you
like,
get to is, you know what I want to replace it with?
Yeah.
Shaggy.
Yeah, Mr. Lubba Lubba. Oh,
Hey, they call him Mr. Bombastic.
exactly.
Anyway, well, you know what song they could have put, because it was the 1980s when he did this.
What?
When the going gets tough, the tough eat cheese. That was what Kathy said, at least. So, like,
Look, I'm imagining there's going
Billy
to be...
Ocean. Suddenly.
Billy Ocean is going, that's great. And then Kathleen Watts-of-Gacy and Michael Douglas go, you know what? We need to have a cheese-based...
Turner.
Kathleen Turner. Romancing the Brie.
Romancing the Brie suddenly happens.
Yes. As Jenny DeVito flying in a plane to their beautiful French chalet, where they now live.
Oh, that's spectacular.
Yeah.
We then had a great juxtaposition.
These are some random cuts.
We had Camilla piping tiny little mangoes. And then we had
He's still
Kathy...
at the signature.
And then we had... of course we are. And then we had Kathy making bologna flowers. Two ends of very different baking. So, and then Kathy turns around and goes, I wouldn't serve this to company, but I have to serve it to the judges.
Kathy, your sewing circle are going to be very angry. You've been holding out on us. More sandwich meats candied, please.
So, the judging. After Heather goes over and helps Camilla with the last bit. The
Where's
judging.
my turkey roll? Candied turkey roll. What else they have? I'm trying to think of things.
So the judging.
Yes.
Candace. Bruno said that it looked like her coffee order. His coffee order. Kyla said the work was clean, but ensured that there are no open sides. Kyla said, I don't understand pumpkin spice, which Anne immediately went, yes, I don't get that either.
But
and then
you're
they
a
both
baker.
went, no, in terms of for a latte. They
Oh,
said, but
okay.
in the bake,
Yeah.
this is how I want this.
Cool.
But that's what they both said. I don't understand the pumpkin spice trend overall. I don't get it.
But it's very similar to, say, getting a chai latte. But, like, you don't have the coffee added to it. You can get a dirty chai, which is where you have the coffee, and that's okay-ish. But just chai's good.
Also, the pastry was underbaked. Heather, beautiful piping, nice writing. The spice contrast well with the sweetness, but Kyla wanted a bit more spice. You know, it's very rare that Kyla goes, you know what, I can actually take more of that. So, Kathy, retro looking, but they weren't even in size, and therefore they weren't evenly baked. The pears were cooked through, but there was too much filling inside, which meant that it was a bit uneven. And they said the candied bologna, though, was great for Anne and Bruno, who loved it, and Kyla was like, they are welcome to it. Andrew, they said it was a very good graphic representation, but unfortunately very underbaked. Bruno said that it was really close, though, in terms of if he got it baked properly, the flavours were excellent. And that's kind of been Andrew's story of this whole series, is he keeps getting really close and it's like slightly under, and they're like, your flavours are amazing if you just get that to the finish line.
Yeah.
Which we'll come back to when he gets to the showstopper, because he finally gets there. Camilla, looked like street food. Some were clean, others were messy. The buttery dough, however, and the sour filling worked beautifully in contrast with each other.
Yeah, and look, let's put pins in that and in Kathy's bake.
Yes. Like, they look like cassettes. Playful, great dough. Flavors blend really well.
And Alan was really taken with the playlist.
Yes, loves it.
He heard,
So
he's like, good use of Belle Biv DeVoe there.
yeah, lots of Belle Biv DeVoe work. Now, where else? What other podcast on the planet are you getting Belle Biv DeVoe references?
Yeah.
It's not happening. No Tone Loc anywhere else. Anyway, so let's go to the technical. So they're going back to the 10th century.
Oof. Yeah, here we go. 10th century, yeah. What were you doing in the 10th century? Oh, wait, we weren't born. That was a few centuries
I was a
before.
speck. Anyway.
Or possibly some water in the ocean.
Anyway, it's Knefe.
It is. It's one of your favourite things in the world.
I love Knefe. So I'm like Kyla. I'm absolutely like Kyla. We've had amazingly good
Knefe
made for us.
Thanks to Huda from
MasterChef.
From MasterChef. The Knefe brothers that get around the different foodie markets here.
It's very. We've talked a lot about the fact that for us,
Little Beiruti in Concord does great Knefe in Miscellaneous City.
We've talked a lot about the fact that in Miscellaneous City, in Australia, it's much easier to get access to things like a lot of the Asian bakes and a lot of the Middle Eastern bakes.
Yeah,
they're just very commonplace.
You want manouche?
You know, I went to a high school that was right in the middle of a very substantial Lebanese population. So all of these sorts of things were around consistently growing up. So I absolutely adore Knefe. Anyway, so Andrew had heard of it but hadn't made it. Heather had not heard of it. Now, as they said, this was critical in terms of the way this was baked. The dough was similar to phyllo. Then it's sliced incredibly thin. Yeah. Like really thin. Rose water syrup covering, crunchy outside, gooey middle.
It's such a, when they created it, you can see that it's been around for centuries because it's like, why fuck with something that's amazing? Yeah. Like the textures on that shit is just fucking great.
And it's like things like, for example, and we'll talk about it now as we get into what they were sort of talking about as it was happening. In Bake Off, you used to rose water being a problem. Yeah. And in this one, for Knefe, rose is good. You want a lot of rose.
Because you've got so much pastry there that can take it.
And the cheese and the pistachios.
And the the nuts. Like, they've got their own flavour, sure, but there's a lot of starch and, like, just things there ready to soak up a bit of rose. So, yeah.
Like, with one of my favourite comments of the night, which was, I've never made phyllo before. I mean, why would you do that to yourself? And I agree. True. Why would you do that? You buy it. Buy it. It's in rolls. So you had to divide the dough into 9 equal portions, which was the first phase of what I like to consider as Kathy having a war against maths. Every time she had to measure something out, it was just like, oh, not again. I hate maths.
Yep. That's why we have calculators.
They made them guess the level of rose syrup, which was terrifyingly funny.
Yes.
We then got to the really thin rolling before they had triple layers up and then do what they referred to as shredding.
Not skateboards.
No, not skateboards.
Oh my god, Alan and
Anne, yes.
Mr. fucking trick there.
100%. Or they could have done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles references too.
Oh my god, one of them could have been Shredder, one of them could be Krang.
Yeah, Saki.
Oh no, don't.
No, I'm not going to break out into my Krang impression. Aruga Saki and Hamato Yoshi are fine. Anyway, so Heather responded with, I am shredding as shreddily as I can. Don't we all do things as shreddily as we can?
Yes, slow and shreddy wins the race.
Then they pressed in, the mixture goes into the bottom of the pan. Mm-hmm. And, like, it was really funny watching poor Kathy. She does this, she goes, what? This doesn't feel right. She's got to, like, press the pastry into the bottom of the pan after you cover it in ghee. Yeah. And then you press the chopped nuts that you've put in the oven for a bit. And then you put the Akawi cheese inside as well. Mm-hmm. Then you put more dough in and you pack the whole thing down. Then you've got to work out what temperature, because they didn't say what temperature. Kathy was not convinced that high was the right one. Mm-hmm. But the sentence that I think is possibly the cruelest thing they have ever put down in a Canadian technical.
Yes.
Use your senses to determine when the Knefe is golden brown. How dare you?
Yes, but Heather was quite clever.
She was listening to it.
And she was listening to her bait. She's like, if I can hear the sizzling, there's a good chance.
Yes.
It'll be golden.
Then they had to get the tray out and flip it over. And then they were like, and Andrew, when he sends it to Andy, looks at Andy and goes, and now what? And the answer was you had to then slide it back onto the thing on the other side and do the other side. Half of them had burnt top.
Yeah.
Loic was the only one they showed, although I'm assuming someone else did it too, but Loic was the only one they showed who went, I think you need to adjust the temperature, turned it way down. He's like, we're going for perfection. I'm going to turn this down. I want golden crunch.
Look, I feel at this point is when some, say, Japanese or Korean ingenuity needs to come in. Because you know how, like, in Japan, when they make is it the taki balls? Like
yeah.
And they have, like, it's almost like
mold.
the clamp. The mold with the two
yeah, and you flip it.
And you flip it. I feel that this would, like, something like that, but for Knefe would be...
Knefe clamps.
Knefe clamps. Please don't...
don't Google that.
Don't Google that. I'm sure that's someone.
I'm sure that's someone else's thing.
Yeah. What is it? Rule 58 or 38 or whatever it is.
Yes. Now, this is where they cut back to Kathy, who's like, both sides should be crispy and golden brown, and then she paused and she's like, yeah. It's like, oh, poor Kathy. She wasn't enjoying herself here. Then they pour the syrup, and the answer was pour the rose syrup. They didn't say how much. Mm-hmm. And like Loic's answer was great. He goes, pour the syrup. That means all of the syrup. And the funny part was, with Loic's, the only criticism they had was, we could have done with some more.
Yes.
So obviously he didn't go heavy on the rose water in the syrup.
No, he probably thought, oh, we've created a quantity. Maybe it's about holding back.
Yes. Now, Kyla walks in and goes, this is one of my most favourite desserts. And they immediately cut to Heather, who just looks down, puts her head in her hands like, oh, no. So, Heather, it looked like nice shredding. There was a lack of syrup and a little bit of burn on the bottom. The cheese and the pistachio distribution was nice, but it hadn't completely cooked through. Andrew, the dough was thick. The crust was there, but it wasn't baked through. The texture wasn't soft at all, and that was part of the problem. Candace, shredding was nice. The edge was a bit rough. The bottom was very hard, but the flavour of the rose was really good. That was the one where... That was really good. Loic, they said this person understands stovetop cooking. Very even, nice crunch, gooey in the middle, needed a little bit more of that rose flavour. Then Camilla, who was unfortunately had inconsistent shredding, and the bake was not even as a result, but the syrup was so good that Kyla just wanted to drink it.
Yes.
She's like, drink that one.
She's doing shots.
Yeah, shots of rose.
Shots.
And then Kathy, nice distribution of the filling. The top was crunchy, the bottom was harder. My favourite part of Kathy's...
shots of that and Camilla's next bake.
But my favourite part of that was Kathy had, at the end when they put the pistachios on top, Kathy had decided to hide the burnt bits with pistachios. And the first thing Kyla said was, there's a pattern on top here. I just can't work out what it is. Burning. Burning is what the pattern was. Yeah. So the order from bottom to top, Andrew, Heather, Camilla, Candace, Kathy, and Loic wins the technical. Mm-hmm. Zippy is having his best day for a very long time.
Why is that?
Because he's done well in the first 2 challenges.
Oh, true. Oh,
Remember?
Zippy.
Loic's nickname, Zippy. That was from the other week.
That's right.
Yep.
It's been a couple of weeks.
It has. You've been busy.
Yeah.
So, the showstopper. Now, we come back to Anne's wig. And Anne's wig, while looking magnificent and resplendent and absolutely suiting her down to the ground, was the starting point of the historical inaccuracy that I am keen to address.
Look, we just broadly went with 19th century. Okay, which, before clarifying Victorian. Because if we were going, say, I don't know, early 19th century, what are we talking? Georgian? Are we talking Regency? Where are we at, people? Are we in the beginning? Are we in early industrial? Late industrial? Where are we at, people? Like, come on. Are we talking about steam trains? Or are we talking about Mr. Darcy jumping into a lake?
We were talking about the idea of,
But she did look very Queen Charlotte.
Yeah, because we started. Well, they started off referencing Marie Antoinette, and I'm like, yeah, but her head was long gone by that point.
Like her head was
1793.
Yeah.
Whoopsie. So again, the pedant historian in me, and I know there's one baker right now who's going, yes, be pedant, be a pedant, be a pedant. Thank you, Heather. So, yeah, like it was very much because then they cut to the bit where what's his talk where gone blank. Kyla is talking to camera.
Yeah.
Kyla talks about Victorian baking.
Yes.
So like where eras are all over the place here. Can we get
I mean, was it very late Victorian? Are we talking 1901, like the day before she died? Was it 20th century?
100%.
Was it?
Sign the thing to make Australia a country. Drop dead. Bake a cake. So it was a kitsch cake. That was what the whole thing was. Basically, this was a piping challenge.
It was, and I think it should have just been called a kitsch cake, rather than a Victorian cake, because
it was they called it a kitsch cake in the challenge, but then they mentioned Victorian, and
yeah, like I don't care. We got good shit out of it, so a rose by any other name, and a bake.
And there were lots of roses.
Yeah. Buttercream icing by any other name.
Basically, what they should have just called it was an over-the-top cake.
Yeah.
But it was only 2 layers, 4 hours, 2 layers, as much piping and stuff. Basically, the reason they had 4 hours was they needed to cool the damn cakes down. Mm-hmm. So, Andrew was about as confused as we were. Because he goes, a kitsch cake apparently comes from the days of, it comes from the olden days.
Good.
Now,
what do you mean? Old school? I mean, if it was Victorian school, it's all slates and chalk.
Old school. Word. Oh my God, it's NSYNC. I can't believe I'm meeting Millhouse. Anyway, Anne turns around to Heather and goes, is kitsch your style? And Heather really quickly goes, absolutely not. Not even a tiny bit. No. Apocalypse survival.
Yeah, she's bringing that.
We'll come to that in a moment because we've got some details there. Mm-hmm. So they talked about the idea about everyone needing to cook the cake fast so that they could then cool it. Mm-hmm. And they basically made it not clear, but they all sort of hinted that the cake was the least important bit of what they were doing.
Yeah, but we always say signatures are about flavour. The technical is about, your ability to interpret and your skills and that kind of stuff. And the showstopper is about presentation.
Oh yeah, so... no, I'm not saying it's not. It was just like, it's very rare they basically just say, we're here for the piping.
Yeah.
So Kathy went with a cherry chip cake with lemon curd and Kirsch-soaked cherries. Mm-hmm. Now, 2 things with this. First of all, this was the start of a trend that may suggest to people that cherries are very outdated because everybody pretty much threw a cherry somewhere.
Yeah, but everyone's bringing cherries back. So, and
what?
I don't think it's in an ironic way. I think we all like a bit of a glacé cherry or a Kirschy cherry.
Well, definitely a Kirschy cherry, but those Kirsch cherries, that was my second point, which was Kathy opened it up and had one. Mm-hmm. And the reaction of Kathy was like, whoa.
It's like that time my mum fucking started soaking bloody the fruit for the Christmas cake in October. Like...
Nearly killed people.
Yeah. Like, I think people would have been done for a small slice coming up to, like, the booze buses.
So, Andrew went with a 50s milkshake.
Luckily, my dad was walking to work those days.
So Andrew went with the 50s milkshake shop vibe. Malted milk, root beer with cherry filling. And then he mentioned to Kyla that he threw basically a full cup of root beer into the cake. And she was terrified about how sweet that was going to be. Kathy, they come back to Kathy for... I'm hoping for it to be a little bit of tart, a little bit of sweet. Just like me.
Yeah, and I think there's our episode title. A little bit of tart, a little bit of sweet.
So, Loic went with a hazelnut frangipan with poached pears, chocolate wine cake, and marzipan budgies. Because they said the budgies are the epitome of kitsch. Now, a couple of things. They are very kitsch, and budgies are native to Australia.
Yep.
So there's an Australian reference in there. So well done, Loic. Great work. For an Australian, they're fairly kitsch, but they're not a cockatoo.
No, cockatoos are our kitsch. If you see a cockatoo decorating something, that's our kitschness. Or a galah.
Galahs are the other one, yes.
Galahs, yes. Or a bit of a lorikeet action. Because they're rainbows.
Lorikeets, yes, but the lorikeets have always tended to avoid kitsch because of the rainbowness.
Yeah, true.
It's more the cockatoo.
Which is ironic, really.
It is. The kitschness is either a cockatoo or a galah.
Yeah, very much so.
Budgies not so much. You know, budgies is something that everybody's grandparents kept. Like my grandfather kept budgies.
Oh yeah.
Had a massive aviary out in the backyard, which I occasionally accidentally let birds out of. Well, I was a bit slow getting into the door. But yeah, that's their epitome of kitsch. Well, I was interested by the fact that budgies are kitsch in Canada.
Yeah, but it's what is kitsch. As we said, very
Everyone
similar
defines,
to like what is old school.
Yeah.
Everyone defines it by what was. They're slightly cringe, but it was popular.
What I will say is that
time.
What I will say is that Loic's budgies looked amazing.
Yeah, they were great. I was a bit worried at first because I'm like seeing him shaking them, like they look a little penisy. But budgies do look a bit penisy, which is why we call Speedos budgie smugglers. Like there's a reason for that.
So Candace is making a Swiss meringue buttercream. And all of the elements that she was making were the elements of an opera cake. And she said that because her and her husband, their connection was through opera, because she's trained in opera. And then she had to spend the rest of the episode avoiding singing because they were pressuring her. Almond cake, chocolate ganache, coffee buttercream, so all the elements of the opera cake. I hope she was going,
oh no, I'm pretty sure that's under royalties. They're like, this is, something from over 400 years ago. There's opera around 400 years.
No. Puccini's very litigious.
Yeah.
Sues all the time. You know what we can't do? Turandot.
No
Turandot.
No Aida.
Speaking of references that are only this podcast, what other podcast
references
gives you Turandot references so strongly? Like, I don't think there are opera podcasts that give you Turandot references as much as this podcast. We've named an entire episode The Washing Up Presents Turandot. I mean, seriously. We go out there for you people. Now it's my favourite moment of the episode. It's the moment we get a bit more of a glimpse into the world of Heather. So first of all, Heather talks about the fact that there were 7 cups of butter in her buttercream. And that she was worried about heart issues for people. Now, I think that's a cover. You see, that's about a month and a half's worth of a supply in the apocalypse. And I think that Heather was worried about losing currency.
Or, alternatively, quite like Dwight Schrute, whose, emergency stores were going out of date. Maybe the butter was going out of date. She's like, I've got to use it.
Yeah, but she was a bit nervous about people with, for heart issues. But I think maybe she's trying to talk them out of it. Not because of heart issues, but she's trying to talk them out of it because, again, it's currency. And she can't give away too much currency. Like last week, if you heard a little bit of this last week, we talked about sugar. And I talked about the fact that sugar was one of the things she was storing for... Salt and sugar were things that she was storing for the future.
Okay, yes.
Right, I think this is part of the hoard.
Okay, this is where I think she's probably talking to Maggie Beer about her storage methods.
Yep.
Asking where she too can get an ice dragon and a fire dragon.
So
if they have smaller, kind of like less manor-sized versions and more bunker-sized versions.
Bunker-sized versions. So just for the
maybe
record,
just a Wyvern.
Just for Heather and everyone else out there. But if you've not listened to other episodes of the Australian version of the podcast, Maggie Beer, the former judge of the Great Australian Bake Off, we have seen it with our own eyes.
Yes.
Kept her butter storage under her manor
Yes.
And the way that she kept it temperate was a ice and a fire dragon
Yes.
that would just in unison keep the room at a beautiful butter temperature.
Yeah, and they had like
It's more cost effective than a fridge.
yeah, like in summer the ice dragon is more used more.
Yeah.
And in winter, fire dragon's on.
But the changeover ceremonies are beautiful. The trumpets, the
Absolutely,
pageantry. Anyway, if you ever get a chance to go, do go.
Yes. And try some delicious Davidson plum while you're there.
Anyway, the rest of Heather's story, because it gets better. So she did a pistachio cake, a chocolate cake, and a sour cherry with a marzipan fox.
Yes.
Now, the reason for the fox is, again, a very Heather thing.
And Heather, I've just discovered your burlesque name, Marzipan Fox.
There you go.
You're welcome.
A fox distracted her during her proposal, which
Wow.
allowed her husband to get down on one knee without noticing that he did. And then
That
he
was
joked around.
well-timed.
And then he jokes around later on that he'd been training the fox for months.
Look, wouldn't surprise me. Foxes are clever.
But all I wrote after that story was, because of course it did. Because Heather.
Yes.
It's just, I want to live in your world, Heather. I really do.
Look,
You're
not
training.
the future world, though.
Yeah, not the apocalyptic one.
Yeah.
The preparing for the apocalyptic one, maybe. Loic asked Andrew for his advice on the buttercream, and Andrew's like, "You're almost there. Just keep beating it. Like it's not. You haven't whipped it enough."
Yeah.
And then he got
And there
2
was
seconds.
Devo in the background.
Devo in the background were
No.
going, "We've been telling you this
Yes.
for years."
Why does no one listen to us?
So Camilla was doing a stout chocolate cake, Irish cream buttercream, and tempered white chocolate spheres. So very Irish nature, very, very United Kingdom nature to her cake. The stout cake with the Baileys.
Yeah.
The spheres were pure modern, but and then Loic gives us all the run in by going, "Now comes the stacking." At which point Kathy starts being amazed, jokingly telling Loic off about how the hell are you done so fast? It's Zippy.
It is.
It's Zippy, and Zippy was flying.
Zipping here, zipping there.
And they cut back to Loic after all of that sort of conversation about how fast he is and how everyone adores him, and he goes, "Let the frou-frou begin."
I'm sure that was a line taken out of the birdcage.
Oh, completely. Now, Anne goes over to Andrews and is like, "Oh, the piping is so clean," and Andrew looks at her and goes, "Thank you for that. Can you tell the judges?" But it was really interesting to watch. Like, Andrew was clearly on a mission with this one because of the fact that he's been like, it's not quite baked, that's not quite done, that's not quite done. Andrew was clearly focused on a mission in this bake that he was going to nail one. Like, it was just going to get it right.
You said nail one.
And they cut back to Heather, who was piping, and Heather turns around
Don't
and goes,
ignore me. Other people are having a giggle too. I hear you,
Yeah, I know.
dirty-minded freaks. My fellow perverts.
I like the way you went off at that, but you didn't go off at the idea, the thing in the first challenge where Andrew referred to the idea of enjoying waking up to Irish cream in the morning. So Heather said, "I'm dangerously close to the edge." Now, she could have been talking about the piping. She could have just been talking about her mental state at this point in time. I don't quite know which is the answer.
We'll wait till we get the postcard.
Yeah, wait till we get the postcard and see what happens. Kathy then runs out of icing,
Oh no.
which is bad in a challenge, which is purely piping.
Oh.
And then they cut back when she's made some more up, and her answer is, "When in doubt, put a swirl on it."
Yes. Look, Kathy, your resilience during this whole fucking episode and one-liners is absolutely...
Her celebration at
Fucking
the end, where she
Yeah.
moves, she goes, "Yeah, good, the girl can do it." Ah, woo! I would have run through a wall for you at that point, Kathy.
Like, I wish I'd have seen this episode just before I competed last week, because I was ready to faint and spew backstage, and I think just a little bit of Kathy Gurring would have just evened me out a bit.
So the judging,
Yes.
Heather. The cake looked rich and complex. The piping had so much. I loved her piping.
Yeah.
So much definition. Chocolate cake was rich and moist. The cherries worked really well, and the pistachio balanced everything.
Yeah.
Candace, opulent in the details. Lots of different piping skills had been used. The sponge was really good. The buttercream was smooth, and the whole thing just had a nice texture to it.
Well done.
Kathy, it looked electric. but the piping looked a little bit rushed in points.
Yeah.
The cherry chip and the lemon curd had a candied quality, but the texture was a little gummy. And Kyla also wanted more of the cherry to offset everything. She said that the lemon hid the cherry.
Yeah.
Camilla, the piping was really clean in certain parts, but also very messy and rushed in parts. But the cake was very even with the layers. The chocolate baubles on the outside gave really good decoration. It was cooked perfectly, but they said it was too heavy on alcohol. Well, Bruno said it was too heavy on alcohol. Kyla just looked and smiled.
And as Camilla rightfully pointed out, it's a party.
Yeah, like, my cake's a party.
Yeah.
Loic. Now, they talk about the beautiful piping, and they talk about, you've obviously spent a long time working on piping. And he points at the cords that are going across the cake in absolute perfection and goes, I learned how to do those yesterday.
Of course he did.
And Kyla just looks at him and goes, well, some of us have taken years to learn that skill. Sophisticated chocolate cake, and the hazelnut in the frangipane represents a lot of skill.
Yeah.
Andrews belonged in a shake shop. They said, great detail work, strong technique. The root beer cake tasted like a root beer float, and Kyla was really loving it too.
Look, it was gorgeous, but I was expecting a house elf to come in and just float it across and drop it on a guest's head. But I'm glad that didn't happen.
The cherry was a great balance. The malted milk cake was rich and creamy in texture, and they said both are cooked perfectly. And he looked relieved, but Kyla was like, you also know they were cooked perfectly because you worked on that.
Yeah.
So we got to the judging at the end there, and Star Baker was Loic and perfect. I know Candace had a pretty good week, but Zippy was perfect. So he deserves to take Star Baker.
Yes.
Then we got to the going home. It was probably between Kathy and Camilla. It was close. Nobody had a major screw up.
No, this was a very tight week, and I think it could have gone either way. Like, I think in Australian Bake Off, the judges tend to kind of take into account if someone's been Star Baker for multiple times.
But
again,
probably the texture on the last cake is what did Kathy in, unfortunately.
Oh, look, it's a real shame that she had this just wasn't her week.
Yeah, but she's had some amazing bakes. I look forward to you getting to see last week's episode purely for the crust.
I'm kind of glad I missed last week's episode then, because I have it down, but then I see Kathy in all
you get to
glory.
go back and watch how it happened.
Yeah.
So obviously, again, it's really sad to lose Kathy. I know Nerman will be devastated. I don't know how he'll cope. But yeah, we go on to next week, which is Spice Week.
Da 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 da.
Keep our powder dry. We've got references.
And if Anne, Alan, Bruno, and
if
Kyla,
they're not the Spice Girls,
yeah, and it has to be post Jerry, I guess.
Yeah, it's post Jerry.
I wonder who's going to be. Oh, well, Kyla will have to wear the British flag dress. Oh no, that's post Jerry.
Jerry.
Okay, she's doing posh then. Although I think Alan would do quite a good posh.
I think they'll have Alan as sporty.
Oh, true. Yeah. He with those long legs, yeah.
Okay, everyone, we want to know in the comments on whatever medium, whether it be Instagram, whether it be Twitter, we still call it Twitter, whether it be Facebook, don't care. Let us know.
I mean, Anne is
who are they?
Anne is Baby Spice, like just
who are they?
Like
who is who?
She is Emma Bunton.
Right, you need to work out who is who, and please let us know in the comments who is who. Who is which spice?
A good scary spice too.
Exactly. There's a lot of options here.
Oh, Bruno has to be Baby Spice then.
All right. So with that in mind, that's going to do us for this week. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for sort of also the feedback on last week's episode too. It was really good again. Thank you again to Aaron and Nerman for stepping in. And just thank you to you for winning and being awesome and amazing.
Aww.
Anyway,
thank you for all your love and support, and thank you Aaron and Nerman for coming in and stepping in for me last week, and for all you peoples that are listening.
So until next time, I'm still Chris.
I'm still Kristie.
And we'll catch you all later.
Okay, let's get this podcast to 88 miles per hour. Get ourselves back to 2023.